Hello and welcome to Almost 30 Podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. We're so happy, grateful that you're here. It's Lindsey and my girl, Krista.
Wish you well. I wish all is well. wishing you the wellest of wishes.
I hope I'm finding, what did they say in the emails?
I hope this finds you well. I'll never forget, I've had many moments in my life where I'm like, I don't know what planet I'm on, because I remember being in my corporate job in management consulting and being at my job and writing emails. And I was like, no one told me about this, that you have to learn a new language.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, why are we doing this? Hello, X. I hope this finds you well. I'm writing in regard to, like, best regards. Like all the...
Such a weird, robotic...
I'll never forget it. I was like, I didn't know this was a part of this. And
how it could be something that, at least from what I've heard, I haven't really formally been in the corporate world, but that it can be such a point of criticism from people, like a boss being like, that email, you got to work on it.
Well, also too, it's funny because when you're at the bottom, you have to do all of that. And then the bosses are like THX.
Yeah, literally.
They're like, yes, THX. Like, that's what I was like, okay, the bosses are not following the same rules
literally.
here.
They don't give a fuck.
There is an aspect of that in life, though, where you have to kind of like...
Yeah. Mm-hmm. To get to that point.
Cut the saw. There's something, there's some phrase that fits, but you have to like be a part of it, and then you can sort of not. But yeah, it was all a part of that world. But
today I'm really excited. My new friend, Robert Glazer, he sat down with me here in New York. And we had a really interesting conversation. He has a new book coming out, The Compass Within, a little story about the values that guide us. And it's actually a workplace parable. So kind of told in a different way rather than like a step-by-step how-to. It really kind of brings in the storytelling, which I actually really enjoyed. I didn't expect to enjoy it, and I really enjoyed. But he introduces a really transformative core framework for defining your values. And I think we hear this a lot, like, what are your values? It's so important. It can guide you in relationships, in your career, in your purpose. And it's very true. But oftentimes people don't know how to define them. Or they say, what are your values? And people are like, family. And or like, love, or whatever
Totally.
it is. And it's
a lot of times people will be like, I don't know, I'm just trying to get this guy to text me back.
Yeah. And it's not actually like helpful in the way that we define them. And it doesn't actually support us in
living by them.
Living by the values.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Because also, I think about that a lot where, something I've been thinking about lately is, do your patterns match your prayers? And it's like that. It's like you could say your values are one thing, but is the way that you're living, because if we were truthful, my values are my cell phone. My values are like me getting, like, if we thought about like the way that you're living every single day.
Yes.
Your values are ESPN.com. Your values are online shopping. What is the way that you're living? How is that of like your values?
Yeah, 100%. So Robert Glazer, just to kind of ground us in this work, he's a #1 Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and international bestselling author. He's a TEDx speaker and the founder of Acceleration Partners. It's a $50 million global partner marketing agency known for its award-winning culture. And I really got the sense that it is the compass for his company, but that has really profoundly affected the culture and how people feel when working there, and how people feel about management and the relationship with that, and how they feel or have the permission to really fail forward and not worry about kind of that hierarchy. And I really felt that from him as a leader. So in this conversation, we talk about why it's so hard to define values, like what is stopping people and really how we fix that. He gives us kind of a step-by-step framework to defining your values. He also gives us a part of his website that I think everyone should go to, robertglazer.com/6, I believe it was. And this is just 6 questions that can help you define your values that I think is a great place to start. We talk about leadership, whether it's in the home, whether it's at work, whether it's in just your own personal life and pursuit of your purpose, and really how we can bring this into our circles, whether it's our family circle of like, what does it mean to have family values and how do we define those? And how does that actually play out as we evolve together as a family, or maybe it's as a friend group as well, or as a company culture. So it was really tactical and tangible, but also we kind of dipped into just kind of this like spiritual side of like the pursuit of success and like how tending to this aspect of, I think, the human desire to have values. I think the human like really desires that, really enhances kind of the less tangible part of our experience here.
Mhm. Yeah, I love this because I think it's just thinking more logically about how you're sort of living your life. Also too with dating, it's like, what are this person's values?
Yeah.
Like, how are you defining them? How are we thinking about them? It's kind of like the unconscious things that we're sort of running in and operating, just brought more conscious and put in a really good way.
Mhm.
So I'm
Mhm.
excited because I'd like to get more clear. I think I'd say freedom is my value. Freedom, beauty, creativity. What would you say?
I was just thinking about a value that he
Consciousness,
shared. It
fun.
can't be one word though.
Can't be one word.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
interesting.
one of
Okay,
his
that's
things.
cool. Because I
Mhm.
thought it had to be. Oh,
Mm-mm.
that's interesting. So I
Mhm.
am
I'm trying to think of the one that he shared. One of his values is something about making things better.
oh, I
And
love that.
it's like,
Let me see.
oh man,
I'd be like,
we talk about it in the first few minutes of this conversation. So look out for that. But it is not one word,
wow, okay, good
which
to
is
know.
cool.
Then
Which
I
is
I
cool.
could do that.
Mm-hmm.
I could fucking talk all the like that. I don't even know if you want that. I don't even know if you want to give me the free reins to be like, tell me your values in a sentence.
Because I think the specificity and also kind of the completion of thought like supports the value. It's like when you say freedom, I'm like, totally. But like, it's kind of like freedom.
Totally.
So like, what specifically about freedom do you value?
That's
Like,
a good one. Money. Actually, this is all bullshit.
or like
it's all money.
kind of take freedom and it's like the ability to be myself in all spaces and
Yes.
places,
Yes.
or
Because it's like freedom of thought, freedom of time, freedom of movement, freedom of choice,
yes,
freedom from limitations, freedom of thought, freedom of being. It's my
Yes.
soul. So I'm excited. I'm gonna get into this.
Yeah, it's really great. robertglazer.com/6, and you can get your 6 questions to start you on this values journey. But thank you so much for joining us. It's The Compass Within is his new book.
Amazing. Morning Microdose is our second channel. You can listen to the best of the best from Almost 30 there. Almost 30 podcast on Instagram and TikTok. On Instagram, I've been loving the posts we've been doing lately. Some really powerful graphic sliders that are supportive of your journey, and then some really great clips. You can find me on Instagram at It's Krista.
And I am at Lindsey Simsick. We love you guys. We'll see you next
soon.
time. I'm super excited to see you in person.
Yeah.
I
for
feel like
having me.
in-person conversations just have an energy and a presence to them that virtual don't. So thanks for coming
Sure.
in person.
I'm psyched to not be on Zoom.
Yeah, man. Oh my God.
Particularly this
Same.
summer, spending
How
all
many
day on
hours
Zoom.
are you spending on Zoom
Um,
per week?
in the book launch world, like
Yeah.
2 to 3.
Yeah.
And I have a Whoop, and that's one of the like negative factors for me. Like 3 hours on Zoom calls, and I'm like
They're like,
taking
"Get
a little
up."
nap at like 5:30.
Totally. What did your Whoop say this morning? How are you? Like, what are your stats?
This morning wasn't great. I don't know. I was like a 50 recovery.
Okay.
But if you have too many good days in a row, like I feel like it regresses. I had like 5 or 6 80 or 90s. I was just due for a bad
Whoop
day.
likes to keep you humble.
Yeah. Don't right. If you start celebrating the green, you'll be at red. I took a red eye when we were going to visit my daughter abroad earlier the year.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think it was like a 2%. It was like a death cross. And it was like, but don't worry. Like there's 8 other people in the world. Like it was it was a very funny message. It was like literally like, you're almost dead, but like, you're not the worst out there today. It was a little, that was the only time I've been like sub 5% recovery. I think I slept like an hour on the plane.
Of course. Yeah. My husband has a Whoop and he's still on it. I lost my whoop right before I gave birth, which I think was a
That's probably
perfect
good.
time
Yeah, that would just
to not
stress you
track my
out.
sleep or recovery.
Totally.
We were just talking about how your daughter
Yeah.
inspired this book. I'd love to
She
talk about that a little bit.
She inspired the format.
Yeah.
So I have been doing this core values stuff for a while. I've been working with teams on it, and I've seen just really cool personal and professional transformation. And I talked a little bit about it in my book, Elevate, and people are like, great, like I'm in on this spiritual capacity and core values, and how do I do it? I'm like, well, it's like complicated, and I've been working on this thing. And I eventually turned it into a course, and a couple thousand people took it. And again, awesome results. And I was like, but people don't go into a course. A lot of people, I was like, I need to do this in a book, but I don't think it'll be kind of interesting. Like, to sort of, I don't know if I pick up a nonfiction book on core values. And so I'm a big fan of Patrick Lencioni and Parable authors. And my daughter, was challenging me. I always kind of challenge her. And so she's like, you should write something fiction, because that would be hard. And you only read nonfiction and write nonfiction. And she was right. But it made me sort of think, I'm like, I actually wonder if that would be a good angle. And it's interesting because in sharing the book, it's, not out yet, or depending on the time of this podcast, with some friends and stuff, people really like see parts of themselves in the character, because it's just, it puts up a little mirror, whether you're having a personal or professional situation. I think this was a better topic to say, let me just like show it to you, and then I'll tell you what you kind of saw in the Parable world. And also I had the intro like sitting out, and she picked it up. Like, I'm a tough editor on them, and I always have been. I'm like, I'm going to tell you the truth. Like, even to the point where my son gave me something recently, I was like, did you cheat on this? Like, it's really good. Like, is this ChatGPT? Yeah, like,
are you able to notice? This is a question
what?
I have as a parent who has someone who's not writing yet, but
if it's ChatGPT, I know like some tells of ChatGPT, because I use it a lot as an editing partner and a thought partner.
Yeah,
but I've actually encouraged them to use it as like a TA, like, ask it how it would grade it. Tell it you're in 11th grade and how would you grade this and what's wrong with it. Don't ask it to write the paper for you, but it's really good at that. So she kind of tore apart my open, and I was first annoyed about it. And then I was like, actually, she's right. So it was fun to see that, / annoying to see it come back at me a little bit in a boomerang. But you realize, your kids are listening. And that's what I always tell them. I'm like, I'm going to goes to one of my sort of core values, the respectful authenticity. Like, I'm going to be nice, but I'm not going to sugarcoat. Like, I'm going to tell you if something's good, if it's not good. I think a lot of kids these days in parenting are sort of missing that, right? It's just, you're perfect and everything. And then you don't have any feedback you come into the workforce and someone tells you that your work is not awesome, and you have a complete breakdown because no one's told you that before.
Yeah, I appreciate that. My husband's like that, and I've had to learn to appreciate it, but it's really just shown me aspects of myself that, I know what he's saying is true.
Yeah.
And I have to kind of claim it for myself and what that really means. It's like, no, I actually am an incredible cook. And why have I not been actually doing the thing that I say I want to do, which is like try a new recipe every week or whatever it is, And it's usually just a nudge of like, you actually have more power than you think. And, I think life can just life us so good, and we forget how powerful we are and how much lies within us. And I think our values just help us to stay on track, and stay grounded. So how did you first come across the power of defining your values? Was there a point at which you didn't have any? Like, what did that look like for you personally?
Yeah. So look, this book is about personal core values. There's also corporate, and I've been in that world. And I used to think this stuff was all BS, because I would I'd walk into these companies, and we worked with startups, and it said integrity and respect. And, the famous case study is that Enron had respect and integrity and all this stuff as they were going down. I was like, look, that is not what Enron values. But they probably did have values. They probably were just like, Patty McGrath, they were probably like stab someone in the back and take aggressive risk and be, spend a lot of money. Like they were things that they rewarded. Right. So I was very disillusioned, but then I started to see some incredible cultures, and they had different things written and things that didn't sound like platitudes. And actually it was operationalized, in the business. But for me, it was about 10 years ago. I went to a leadership sort of retreat for about 20 people, an entrepreneurs organization all around the world. And I was like, great, we're gonna like learn how to lead people and do stuff and all this tactics. And like, I'm
Mhm.
excited. And like the first couple of days were exhausting. They were just this big freaking mirror in your face. And it was like,
Therapy.
who the hell are you and what do you value?
Ooh, yeah.
And a little like, and I realized I was a very values driven person and probably had been for a while, but I didn't know what they were and I couldn't articulate it. And it was driving me crazy because it was a little like Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek wrote this book about why and everyone loved it. Turns out it's harder to just go find your why, right?
Mhm,
And then you had kind
mhm,
of go figure it out.
mhm.
Everyone's like, I don't know how to do that. And then someone else came along and kind of figured out archetypes in a system and all that stuff. So I spent like 6 months after that, be like, look, I'm going to figure this out. And I went online, I looked at stuff and I found keyword lists and I was like, this kind of isn't it. And I spent like a lot of time and I figured out kind of really like architected core values that I could make decisions around in my business. And I started like doubling down on the 4 stuff and just getting out of the other stuff. And I
Mhm.
feel like I had always felt that I was like just below my potential. That had sort of been a sort
Mm.
of gnawing thing since I was young. In fact, all my report cards kind of said that. But I didn't realize it until a year ago when I was speaking at something a couple years ago. Someone was reading my bio, and I was like, every single thing that they read in my bio was after that moment. I had started my
Wow.
business, but we were kind of at an inflection. So I came back to the business. I reset what we were doing. I cut the business values down, and I just said, like, okay, this is me. Like, I'm going to double down on this stuff. Then we started teaching that curriculum to our class of developing leaders, and I was like, "This is really cool." And they're like, "Why are we talking about company core values? Today?" I was like, "Actually, no. We're talking about we want you to be really good leaders, and I don't think you can be a really great leader. You can tell." Companies can tell people, hey, this is kind of what a good leader looks like at our
Right.
company and does. But people are going to lead authentically from their own place and their values, which includes their history and the things they're running from and
Mhm.
against. And that stuff shows up in the workplace. And the one thing I've seen over 10 years of doing this now is that leaders are either they're leading from their values driving the steering wheel, or there's an invisible instructor in the wheel
Yeah.
next door that's driving that. And it's a huge difference who's driving the wheel.
Mhm. So what are those like mistakes that people make, I guess, when defining their values or, what are the blocks that kind of come up? So you were at this leadership
Yeah.
conference and what were you
They didn't
encountering
give us any, they didn't give us any, like, here's how you do
Oh,
it.
okay.
They were
So
just
you're
like,
like just
they're
you're
like, it's just
staring
really
at
important to be a
yourself.
values driven leader. And I was like, I get it. And I
Cool.
actually feel very strongly about certain things and pulled. We all know, I think, generally the space of our values. The best analogy I have is if you took a nice sports car and you put it in a tunnel, right? And
Mhm.
I turn off the lights on the tunnel, you're going to basically drift to the right side. You're going to hit the wall. You're going to kind of come back to the middle. You're going to overcorrect. You're going to hit the wall. You're going to get out of the tunnel. The car's going to look like crap
Yeah.
on the other side. That's sort of like we know we know when a value is crossed. We feel it. That's hitting it. But again, my
Mhm.
car's pretty beat up. Like turning on the lights and saying the walls are the values and the lines are the warning sign, like stay in these lanes. So we can talk later about sort of the core thing in my structure that's a little different in the framework is this notion of the core validator, like what makes a good one. What makes a bad one is one word platitudes. Because if you want to be able to make a decision on it or you want to do something on it, it's got to be more specific in terms of
Mm.
what it means. And to me, the decision-making rubric is the most important thing on a value. Should I do this or should I not do this?
Right.
And the book goes through the character of the big 3, like the biggest 3 decisions in life, like your partner, your community, your vocation, like those have to be aligned. So I think we know it, but these one-word values don't work for us and they don't
Mhm.
help us make those decisions. Integrity, family, health, like it doesn't meet the threshold of actionable.
Yeah. What does the more specific version of those platitudes look like?
Yeah. So, like health would be someone saying maintain physical and mental discipline, right? And maybe
Mhm.
that comes from something in their life. Maybe they were unhealthy when they were younger.
Yeah.
The childhood stuff that shows up for people in the workplace and the adult stuff, most people are doubling down on something that was very important to them, or they are running 100%. I just did this work with a group, and this guy, we know him as the hardest worker. And he has a core value of work hard. That is just, he'll exhaust himself, but that was his dad. And this other guy was like, my core values are all, he was in a family business. He's like, my core values are all like me running away from the stuff that I didn't like. So look, some of my core values are find a better way and share it. That's sort of my top orientation, self-reliance, long-term orientation. These are not, and respectful authenticity, which defines so much of what I do. But again, it's not something you would hear anyone say.
Right.
I think things like include all perspectives, right? Another one of the problems is that people say like family. Well, family is a core value of mine. I'll be like, family is not a core value because it's a priority.
Right.
But one of the tests for me is that it has to be consistent. Is it consistent in your personal and professional life? So I'll be like, well, what is it about family? And they'll be like, well, to me, it's important that you show up and that you're there and you're present, right? Like, well, maybe that's the value. Like, show up and be present, right? Probably comes from somewhere where there was someone showing up or someone not showing up. But then if you talk to them about it, they're like, actually, that's the friend I am. I show up and I'm there for people. That's the boss I am. And then they're like, oh, because they get really mad when I tell them family can't be a value. And I'm like,
everyone's got family on their
it's a priority because family wasn't a value when you were 15 or 16. Most of these things, if you figure them out and if you sort of solve it, it's like the stencil. And people have this, like the character in the book, this sort of like aha. I'm like, oh, geez, if I go lay this on my whole life, why did that job suck and that boss sucked and that boyfriend sucked? And why was this like, it actually all makes sense because the other test is one of the tests in my kind of validators is, does the inverse of it make you really uncomfortable? Like if we figured out one of your values and I created this archetype that was the opposite of it. And I said, Lindsey, how does it, you're at a party, let's just say you're someone who's gratitude is a value, or again, one word, so bad, but like always be grateful or something like that. And like you're at a party and you're talking to this guy and he is telling you about his trust fund and how his mom's coming to work and all this stuff that is like anti-gratitude. And the person's face just gets like tense. And they're like, yeah, that is the opposite of my value. So when values are violated, like we just feel that at our core.
Do you feel like there's, because what it sounds like to me is like kind of this like rediscovery of who you really are and how you want to show up to your life and like what you'll be available for and not.
Yes.
And has that always been since you've incarnated on Earth, or is it like, is there a certain age at which it becomes your values? Because like, could a 10-year-old have values that survive their whole life unevolved? Or is it like, hey, after 18 or after 25, when your prefrontal cortex comes online, you'll be able to define your values?
I've generally seen that they stay the same for most people. Hence unless they have some formative experience, right? Your partner or someone, you get cancer in your 20s or 30s and health may become the most important thing in your life. But they're not at birth. I think they are forged. We all have these experiences and these experiences affect us differently. And there's things that, again, we long for it and we want the same, and or like it was painful and uncomfortable. And ironically, it might become a motivating force for us to do good, even though it's painful and uncomfortable. Again, I'm not a therapist, so I'm not I'm not going back and litigating it, but it's like, look, you were alone a lot and now you started this after school program for kids. Like, that's awesome. You made a really meaningful contribution out of that. But I think it's in these like formative years and formative experiences that people have. And when you generally figure it out and you look back, it's really cool to do. I just watch it click in people's head and they're like, oh, like I like was literally doing this work with someone from a leadership standpoint. She was going through a divorce and I was like, these are two of your core values. And she had this look and I was like, what? And she's like, my ex is like the opposite of two of these. And I was like, that doesn't surprise me. That's really hard. We talk about the big three. Like, you can be with your partner, and I did not understand this in my 20s. Like, because I think we look at, compatibility from activities? Do we like the same things in the same books? But when you start having kids and you start making a life together, it's about those big decisions.
Yeah.
My wife and I are super different interests, but about the big things, we're generally always on the same page.
Yeah.
If you have a couple things that are misaligned, but if you have like an opposite magnet all day long and you're like, this person is about the long term and this person is about living in the moment and this person is about spend it and this person's about save it, like that gets hard.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so with couples in particular, or even in your own experience, how do you bring this to the table in conversation? You know, because it does feel, it's like this concept. And then obviously you're helping us to define it in a very specific way and just bring it in tactically to our lives. But how have you brought this into conversation, like with your wife, for example?
My wife and I joke. So
She's like, we got it. I got values.
Well, we also did, she hasn't done the full values and I will not push her to do that, but we did this why exercise and actually very much that is like the dominant core value for a lot of people. And so her why is better way and mine is, her why is right way and mine is better way. And those are like super like problematic in certain circumstances. Okay. So we use that language. She'll be like, do me a favor. I just planned our whole weekend. Yeah. Like, don't make it better. Like, don't we could do differently. Don't whatever. And a lot of times I'm like, there's not really a right or wrong decision here. Like just it's pizza or Chinese food. Yeah. Like go with it. Like she brings that sort of apparatus, really good decision-making apparatus to smaller decisions. So I think if a couple did this work and said, look, here's my list of core values, here's my list, they would be able to identify these points of conflicts. And I would say, you can probably tell why people are fighting, right? Yeah. You can tell that, hey, look, most of our fights come from this sort of in the moment, in the like, look, I grew up, with a mom who is sick and I have this live every day. And this person grew up, poor and they really have a kind of save for the future, mentality. And so like we are kind of struggling here. There was a story I heard on this from two soccer players who were dating, two of the women's soccer players. And it was a great story because I think it was the values. And she said, look, like we fight, like our fights are over this takeout food because she wants to order a lot because she grew up in table where there wasn't enough food. And like, I grew up being told not to waste. So like, we finally came to this deal. You can order whatever you want and whatever, but it will become leftovers and we will eat it over the next 2 days. Right. And I thought that was a really good example because like, look, we're not going to change. We're 30 or 40-year-old fully baked humans at this point. In your 20s, if you really want to make some changes, let's acknowledge these things and where there are potential areas of concern.
Yeah. I had a similar moment with my husband where he grew up with a single mom, incredible mother. And I grew up with both parents, and I feel like they were able to create some experiences for me that maybe his mom didn't have time for. She was working full time. And so we were going to Florida to visit a friend, and I was like, can we go to, and I'm not like a Disney World person, but I was like, we have a son.
There's always one, not one.
I'm like, can we go to Animal Kingdom and just, whatever? He's like, yeah, of course. Like, that sounds good. But I wasn't feeling the passion from him. I was like, and it was like a Thursday, he still had work to do. And so he was like in the room a majority of the day, like doing work. And I was pissed. I'm like, I'm going to not be a part of this and see this. And, isn't this so cool and whatever? And we had to have a come to Jesus moment because he was like, first of all, I have to work. And so we could have done better communication around that, I guess. He's like, but also I didn't grow up with this. You know, I didn't grow up expecting this or experiencing this. And so I actually don't think about doing this stuff. Right. I'm glad that you do because that's a part of what you're bringing to our family too. And
he might have a value if you get what you get.
Yes.
Right? And that's just.
So I'm thinking about the values now in that situation. And it's like, so it's
There's probably something that sits under that for him where, you don't want things, needs or wants or something like that.
Yeah. Yes. And I think I saw my dad in particular overcompensate with those types of experiences, but kind of lack on, say, the emotional that I think his mom gave him in abundance, right? So it's like so interesting.
The stuff, it again, I I've run a professional service business for 20 years.
Yeah.
Like at that point, you're like almost a therapist because it's never a product issue, right? It's only people.
Yeah.
And this stuff carries through to people. Like, so here's an orientation I've seen, particularly in the workplace.
Okay.
So people who, in a core value, they have a core value of trust or relationships based on trust. Now, I've learned from doing this for a while, when I kind of sense this out, I will say to them, Lindsey, I'm not going to ask you what it is, but did you have a violation from trust at some point in your childhood? Because this seems strong for you. Usually tears rolling down,
Right.
ashen face. Again, doesn't matter to me what it is. I just know we're on the right page, right? So here's how this shows up as a 20, 30, 40, 50-year-old leader in the workplace. They sort people into can be trusted or not trusted. And the feeling that someone cannot be trusted is deep and dangerous, right? It's primal. Like not being trusted is how I get hurt and how I get blindsided. But they're putting people into, this bucket, and they're throwing people into the penalty box without a key, and the people on their team have no idea. So an HR person on once commented to me, she's like, oh, when I explained that I knew this person was a trust person, they'd had some, she's like, I was always so confused. Like they were in love with this person one day and they weren't the next day. And so this is the steering wheel driving, and this is, you not driving. So what this would look like in my ideal world, and when we taught it, is like, hey, Lindsey, you just did this work. You have a core value of trust. What would be really helpful is to go back to your team or people when you hire and be like, look, trust is really important to me in a relationship. And when you miss a deadline, when you show up late, when I can't find you at 4 PM, we work from home, like it sort of causes like issues of trust. And by the way, trust is really hard to repair with me. So if you feel that I'm distant, feel that I'm aloof, there may have been a violation of trust. And by the way, I give my trust wholly, but once it's broken, it's hard to get back. So come talk to me if you feel that.
Right.
That's again, we're not going back. We're not litigating. This is how this person has showed up in the workplace for 20 years. This just might be the first time they understand how to use it to their advantage.
So having conversations and basically like outing themselves in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Right. And then asking for what they would need in order to.
It's like how to manage me, right?
Yeah.
Like how to manage up. Look, my dominant orientation is find a better way and share it. You would not want to come work on my team if you're someone who likes the rule and let's do the same thing. Like fighting words to me are that's how it's always been. So I would just tell people that. I'm like, look, if you want stability and calm and predictability, that's not if you want new and growth and creation, that's much more my leadership style. We had someone who did this work and figured out that, growing up, they had a parent that had some mental health issues. And that parent just couldn't read a room and like was always saying the wrong thing and just really like embarrassed them. And they loved this parent, but they realized like, oh, like self-awareness is like a really important value for me. Like this is an anti-value. Like, and so when people on their team flashed anything of self-awareness, they would get all over them. So they didn't realize it. So she was psyched. She took her values, went back to her team, gave a whole presentation. It's like, look, I'm free to be me. This is me. This is how you manage me. These are my red lines. These are my triggers. And we actually managed the performance of all those leaders over the next 3 to 6 months, and they had markedly higher scores. And they felt great about it. They're like, look, I finally get to be like, this is who I am. And like, I'm probably not gonna change unless I really want to. The change is I'm going to be aware of this and lean into it. I'm not going to try to make it that trust is important to me, at this point. It's pretty baked in. I had someone once tell me he had sort of a make sense of thing, why, or a core value. And, what he said was like, look, I had a very abusive stepfather. And like every night for me, it was like, how much did he drink? Do I get him to chase me? Is he going after? So that's just, he looks at situations and has to figure them out and make sense of them analyze. Like that's what's comfortable to him. And that came from a crazy story that he shared with the group.
Wow. In the workplace in particular, so we're talking about leaders. I feel like everyone, has that self-led aspect of their role in an office or a corporation. But if we're talking about someone who has a boss, and that employee is working on their own values and getting clear about them, how do we communicate that upwards?
So there's an interesting example back to that trust thing. In that case, you'd probably go to your boss. So trust people actually tend to overwork to earn each other's trust because they don't know how to communicate that, right? So you might say to your boss, hey, look, trust is really important to me. So I need to know that you have, that I have your trust. And if I don't have it anytime, like I'd love you to tell me. Or, hey, look, I'm really motivated by figuring out better solutions or whatever. So I'd like the projects where, we're doing this. I mean, moving people to their strengths. You need to, I play tennis and I like the analogy, like in tennis, like you got to be aware of and mitigate your weakness or a good player will go at it, but we're trying to go to our strength. So you're trying to say to your boss, hey, look, here's what I do really well, or here's what you can count on me for. And so keep this in mind when you're picking who does, like if I knew someone on my team had a core value of include all perspectives, I would not be like, oh, like, can you do me a favor? Like, will you go make a unilateral decision without talking to anyone? Literally, I'm asking them to do something that is inherently painful for them. But I would then ask them to be like, look, actually, we need to figure out when we're going to do this office party. So can you figure out like the date that works best for everyone and kind of come back to me? And they'll be like, awesome. Like I'm going to get everyone's feedback and I'm going to synthesize it. So just starting to understand, and any good leader should want to put their team in situations that they would do well. So if you're telling someone, here's what I do great and here's what I don't do great, and they don't care, like it's probably not a great boss.
Yeah. Have you ever, I'm sure you have, but worked with someone in a leadership position where you're like, how the heck are you a leader here? And then have you had success in kind of bringing this type of analysis and just defining the values into their realm? Like, because I'm sure it happens more often than not, but I'm always curious, like, are they able to be penetrated in that way?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Again, people change if they want to. So I think when people realize that something is bad for them, they will make a change, right? And they'll say, look, this is a problem. I think when they don't or they perceive it's an external problem. So I've seen both. I've seen people really lean into this and understand and be like, you know what, I want to switch to this job or I'm not good at this. I've seen people fight it and make the same mistakes and think that if they just change their job, this issue will go away. And I've seen this enough to be like, no, this is who you are. This is how you show up. I remember someone recently who sort of like, I had been kind of telling them about this for a while. And then they finally came to me at the end, almost before like it was too late. And they were like, I kind of think like this is hurting me. It was kind of a little too late at that point. And then it was interesting. Even after they left, we continued to find problems that were part of that same manifestation. They either trusted too little or put too much in, trusted too much or didn't trust enough.
Do you find that, so these are personal values that are obviously applicable both in personal life, work life,
and friends,
and friends,
family, and business.
Yes. And do you feel like people have a propensity to be able to hold those values better in certain realms over others, or it's when you get them defined and clear and specific that it's able to just kind of penetrate all?
So that's a great question because, and I always say, like, as much as we all love Jerry Maguire, like a lot of the work I've done, like people figure this out and they're like, wow, my company doesn't match my values. They've got kids to feed, they've got bills to pay, right? So we'd all love to drop the mic and walk out. But I think people, particularly in the corporate realm, look, if your friends don't match your values, if your community, we forget about community in the big three a lot. Like community matters a lot, right? So if you say, look, let's say you're someone that had a health scare and health is really important to you, and you live in Newcastle, England, and they go out to the bar like 8 hours a night, you're not going to go out to the bar and not drink, right? Or it's not the right group or friends for you. You need to be somewhere where the default activity is outdoor or exercise or otherwise. So, obviously we can change our friends, we can change our partner. Like these things have costs. Values decisions are some of the hardest ones. They tend to be the more painful in the short term than just going along with stuff and age very well over time, particularly when you make hard decisions that are values aligned. Work is tough. If you don't work for yourself, right, you don't get to choose who you're working with or how. I think you can try. I always say this, I wrote another book about the worst employees are not the ones who quit and leave, they're the ones who quit and stay. My advice to someone would actually to be the employee who quits and stays and says, look, I'm done at this place. Like, it doesn't align with my values. I just may be here for 9 months while I look for something that does,
Right.
but I've emotionally made the decision to move on because
Yeah.
my work here makes me feel shitty. Like, and I'm asked to do things that just don't feel good. And if you're asked to go, a lot of people say, well, what happens if you go against your values like all the time? Well, you're either going to do two things. You're going to feel pretty crappy. It's that sort of like, grading on the chalkboard, or you're going to subjugate your values, right? And kind of put them in the back of the closet. And then it's probably going to have a blow up at some point, right?
Yeah.
Like with your partner, if you sort of like, we're just not going to deal with this huge values misalignment we have. And then it's going to like come out in the future. I've always said similar in a company about just more direct conversations. Have you ever, anytime you like don't have the little conversation and you hold on to the thing, it always comes out. And then when it comes out, you start with, and then 4 months ago, and then 2 months ago, and then a month ago. And so I joke why I think it's bad in the workplace to do that, to not tell people real time. I'm like, any of you in a relationship ever had that come out? And it's ever been a good conversation when you start, because you're like, wait, 3 months? You were pissed at me 3 months ago and 6 months ago when I was doing that. So.
Yeah. And also like the body keeps a score. I feel like the body really like kind of holds on to those moments, those feelings in particular. And I've had those moments where I just swallow and I'm like, oh, that's not gonna be good for my body. Like, it just over time it can, I've seen, I had, there was a period of my life in my 20s in particular where I just felt like I wasn't speaking my truth.
Yeah.
I was just I was
and that's
recovering
common at that time.
very common. People pleasing most of my life, like very polite, good girl, yada, yada. And it was coming to a head at that time. My skin was flaring up. I was just like, I felt like inflamed. Like it was like hot. It was like something inside of me was just
discongruence.
cooking and wasn't able to flow out of me. And so when I started in small ways, over time, and it compounded to like actually just say the true thing in moments in my relationships, skin cleared up, inflammation went down. Like I just felt better. I felt like I looked better, more healthy. Like it was just wild to me. That was a moment in my life where I was like, wow, okay. Like if you feel like you were just biting your tongue or just kind of swallowing something and not saying the thing or not actually making a decision based on what I now know is your values, like it's going to have a consequence.
Yeah. There's a Gandhi quote. And to me, this is like, he says happiness, but to me, it's the essence of, think about the people, living in line with your value congruence is what you're thinking. He says happiness is when what you think, say, and do are all aligned, right? Think about how the people we know, they are thinking one thing, they're saying another. That's really exhausting,
Oh my God,
right?
it's so exhausting.
Versus to be like, look, what's in my head is the same thing that I say and the same thing that I do. And I'm worried about where we are in the world today because I think we are, and social media and the college campuses and a lot of the stuff that just doesn't make sense to me. We are getting very tribal, right? Where we are joining a cause and I'm like, these people actually mean you harm. Like, and you are, but you're joining and taking their banner and their flag. And because that feels like fun to be part of something, which I get. And we had COVID.
Right.
But generally, like if you were anchored in your values, you would be like, that is not me. Like I'm not, I can say no to that cause or joining that thing. I know everyone's doing, but that doesn't make sense. I just said I value truth and these people are lying. Or I just said I value being kind to all humans and they're telling me that one type of human is horrible. Like these things don't make sense. And people you're very worried more, I think, in your 20s and your teens about what other people think. I think that's what we're losing now. I think people could anchor in these values and figure it out. They'd be like, oh, like, here's what I should do there. Or I should say no to that. Or this is why that feels a little bit like I feel yucky. She sort of said, doing this.
How are you, because I'm curious just for like our kids, like how are we teaching our kids values? I hear it. I'll see little clips on Instagram, like my values in our home or this, and we say it every night, but I'm like, how do we really get through to our kids on this level and have them feel good about their own values and actually make decisions based on them, not need to follow the crowd or their friends?
I think yeah, you don't want to make this way too complicated,
Yeah.
for kids, but I think talking them through when you feel strongly about something, when you feel righteous, like, why is that? And that's okay. I think family values are great for little kids, and I think kids should be part of it. Like, what do we, the
Mm.
Glazers, want to be and say? And values in organizations and personally, they substitute for rules, a lot of arbitrary rules, because the combination of values make up a whole bunch of things. And so
Right.
we did it with our kids, and they had like, what do we stand for? And I've heard families who say, we the X's, we tell the truth. That's just how it is. Now, they can be more one word, but again, our family kind of values are be happy and healthy, be respectful, responsible, and resilient, and be
Okay.
kind, right? So there are these three.
Great.
And I always say, like so my son, who's always like, can I have the third cookie? My answer would be like, but that's not healthy. Like, we talk about healthy.
Mhm.
And still one of my most proudest moments as a parent was when for one of my children, I won't name it, but the teacher used 4 out of the 5 family values to describe the kid in the report card that they sent us. So
Wow.
it's we're all kind of like animals, right? We're training. We have a puppy right now. We're training a dog. It's like you do what's rewarded, and and same in organizations, and what's sort of punished, you move away from. So I think making these family values fun, and then at some point also saying, but look, like, you've got your own values and you're your own person, and what does that
Yeah.
look like and feel like? Probably they kind of need to be a teenager, but one of the favorite family value stories I heard was this guy was telling me his daughter, and it's just so much better than arbitrary rules. It just really is. Like, again, if I ever hear that my kids are not respectful or other kids are not respectful, it's just it's a
Yeah.
real trigger for me. Like, but his daughter was going to prom, and they were kind of negotiating over curfew. And look, a lot of parents would say your curfew is 1:00, right? And this dad took a different approach. He's like, look, that, like, it's a night, there's a lot of people out. Your mom and I, are going to be worried. We're going to be up. So, like, I want you to pick a time that you think is reasonable, because we're just not going to sleep really well until you're home. And maybe he was thinking 1:00, and she was like, I'll be home by 12. But rather than it being an arbitrary rule, he sort of explained like,
Yeah.
hey, look, we care and worry, and that's why. And she picked a different time, and it sort of brought her into it. So the more discussions you can have with your kids, again, we the Smiths don't lie, or we are kind to people. That's different than, like, you broke a rule,
Yeah.
this is an arbitrary rule.
Yeah. It makes them like an active participant and
Yeah.
reflective, I think. Because if it's like, this is what we do as a family, it's not just kind of like,
Yeah.
you did this wrong and now you have to fix
And your
it.
kids should get old enough where they start calling you out on your that's when it's fun.
Yeah. That's
What value?
cool.
You're like, was that a white lie, Dad? Or is that and then
Yeah.
that's an interesting discussion. Like, do we always tell the truth, or do we save people's feelings in these cases? Like, those are
Yes.
kind of interesting discussions. But I would make the kids part of that, and there's an age when they can
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah. Because I think one of the most heartbreaking things that I've experienced, both as a child, but then as an adult, and just witnessing it and realizing it in therapy, is like when a parent wants to drive home a value on their kids and they don't live by it,
Yeah.
over and over. And
How does
then the
that work
kid
in
is,
leadership too? Right. Yeah.
oh yeah, it's just, I think for the child, I'm sure it's heartbreaking for the adult on a subconscious level, and that eats away at them. But then there's also the child not seeing that example and that discussion of like, no, we stand by that,
Yeah.
and then it's confusing. It's like, wait, so you don't do it, so I have to do it. Like, it's so confusing,
Yeah.
and but I just love this approach, because it's like actively participating together, actively holding each other accountable, making it more of a positive spin
Yeah.
rather than like,
And
you
those
have
should
to.
be discussions, and you should,
Yes.
I think maybe it would help, maybe it would make the parent behave better if they felt like they're watching and I've been telling them this. Because once that's broken, like in any leadership,
I know.
that credibility is gone. And by the way, that violation of trust or honesty goes to become that value or orienting
Yeah.
thing in that person's life, where they will never trust anyone again who says one thing and does another. So they will have some sort of authenticity oriented value, and they will be incredibly skeptical for the rest of their life of anyone who speaks from a pulpit.
Yeah. 100%.
Metaphorical pulpit, not
that's
actual pulpit.
yeah. That's so true. Okay, so just to kind of round us out, can you walk me through like how we begin to
Sure.
get really specific?
Yeah.
I'm nervous. Okay.
So again, in the book, you can follow the character and in his discussion with his mentor, like you'll see it. But it really starts with these 6 questions. They're these 6 behavioral-based questions. They're designed to look at the times in your life when things were great and things were problematic, and what do you want said about you, your eulogy. And I have all these questions at robertglazer.com/6, S-I-X. You can just go get them. So you would take these 6 answers to these 6 questions, and you would answer as much as you can, as you could. Then you would take all these questions and you would start to look across these 6 pieces of paper with crayons or whatever is color for themes, because the same things will come up over and over again. They've been designed to kind of find experiences that are highs and lows, and there's opposite, like what's the stuff you really can't stand about people, and you'll realize the inverse of that is something that you value. Yeah. And so you start kind of taking those lists and then kind of circling all the green things and moving them to a new, I have a green theme here and I have a red theme here and I have kind of an orange theme here. And then the really different thing, and this is all in the book or the course or whatever, is this concept, this kind of core validator that I have. And this is the thing that people tell me, because a lot of times people just give you a keyword list and they're one-word things. Right. The keywords you can pull into this to be like, these 5 things that I said in the red thing, like what are they? So what you're trying to figure out is the theme first. You got to get the right, this is cart before the horse. A cool sounding name for the wrong theme doesn't help. So the core validator, which is the way you run this against this, is first, like, is it something I can make a decision on? Do I feel like this theme is something I could look at and say, I should do this or not do this? And then the second question is, does the opposite of this make me really uncomfortable, right? Does it make me frustrated and mad? Because that's the sign. So those are kind of like, do I have the right theme? And then when you get into the wording, when you get into like, hey, there's this better, or how do I get from like better or improvement or whatever and to find a better way and share it, there's another 2 questions. And you say, look, is it a sentence structure? Is it kind of 3 to 5 words, not 1 word? So it's more unique and not everyone could say it. And then could you objectively rate yourself on it? Could you say like, I'm doing a good job on this or not? Like, because that's how I feel like core values in the workplace. You should be able to be on your performance. It's like, I have value of long-term orientation. I really struggled in our business after COVID because it was like one chaos after another. And I used to work on the 6 to 12 months ahead, and we could only plan like 2 months ahead. And so I was like, look, I'm actually not getting a lot of focus on the long-term time. And so I'm frustrated. So when you take all those answers, you do the themes, there's a lot more kind of stuff in it. And it takes a little bit of time. Yeah. And you run them through this filter, and you do a really kind of good job of running them through the filter. You will end up with these things that are decision-making rubrics, which again can help you. Like, is this the right partner? Is this the right job? Is this the right community? For me, how many people live in a, super political, polarized community, and they're like, I kind of really value all perspectives. Like, I don't kind of want to be and community could be my 8 blocks or it could be my town, but I don't, I actually want to talk to different people. I don't want to be in a place where it's like, I got to show which team I'm on, and so that is the general process, but it all starts with those kind of 6 questions. Okay, cool. And I know a lot of people, like, they're not going to do all of the work or whatever. I'm like, look, do me a favor, because it's really cool for me when people post these on LinkedIn. Grab a cup of coffee, go on the 6 questions, Robert Glazer, I'm a slash, just answer them, look at the answers and see if you're like, like some interesting stuff came up there.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to do it. robertglazer.com/6.
6, S-I-X.
Okay, yeah. Great. Do you feel like, so we have our personal values. Do you feel like if you lead an organization in some capacity, that organization should have their own values? And do they have to be similar to your personal values? Like, how does that work when you're
So it depends on if you're the founder and CEO of the organization. I think if so, there are going to be a lot of direct dotted lines, right? But those are supposed to be shared values amongst, the team. So they're not going to be perfect, but they're going to be aligned. You're going to build this in the model of what's important to you. So when I figured out my sort of core value of respectful authenticity, again, I'm the person like, friend or whatever, like if you want someone who's going to tell you what you want to hear, to call Steve or Sarah. Like
Right.
I'll tell you like the truth in a nice way. And I had one of those conversations last week, and I felt really good about it because that's in my zone of doing it. Right. So you're going to kind of have that orientation, around it. And then you're going to kind of just make those decisions and move forward with it.
Is there any, because we're in this like social media world now, do you have anything to say about like core values in social media? Your experience, what you're seeing, is there like a gap there?
Yeah. And I realized I forgot the end of your last question. I'll jump back quickly. So if you're the founder, they're going to
Yeah.
align. The company may have stated core values. The actual core values may be different, like Enron. And so I think you need to be like, are these compatible?
Sure.
Like, do I, it's a good test of like, do I value the same thing?
Yeah.
The social media thing is interesting. I think the social media allows us to sort of point and shoot and duck. And that's where a lot of the problems come from, where
Yeah.
you can probably do something that's pretty incongruous with your values and then kind of hide.
Yeah.
Rather than having to sit down or being called on it or a discussion or someone to be like, hey, dude, that is not like who you have told me
100%.
you are on your brand. And so I tell everyone, like, do not get into a Twitter war or a LinkedIn war. Like, you will be
Yeah.
pulled into the mud, right? And not
Totally.
in it. So social media doesn't, I was listening to one of your episodes, you were talking about this with the guests. Like, it doesn't, there's nothing it makes better, really. Like you're hiding behind it. You're not having a real conversation. It boils things down to characters and incendiary things. There's so many people for whom, like, I don't think they would ever say something in person that they would do on there. And so that's making you a little bit someone you're not. I wrote a post on this. I was commenting. I had a couple people. I have my newsletters on Substack, and I have a paid thing. And Substack's like a well-known thing. You can unsubscribe. It's super easy. And I get these letters where like, I can't get out of this. I'm trapped or whatever. I'm like, let me fix that for you. Like, definitely there's like 100 like unsubscribes on every email and whatever. So 2 people in a row, like I credited them, wrote them a nice note and said, fix this for you. By the way, like, I didn't hear anything.
Yeah.
And so someone on my team was saying, would you do that? If you walked up to a customer service desk and you said, this is my problem, and you yelled at them, like, oh, let me totally fix that for you. Would you just like walk away and not say anything? But we'll do it online. So I don't think online communication is a little bit of an oxymoron. Again, I think it is stoking. Tribalism is the opposite of values, right? So tribalism, unless you share the values of your tribe, is that I get pulled into something. I feel like I have to be part of the movement. Like I either am in it or I'm out of it. And it encourages no reflection back on like, how do I really feel about this?
Yeah, the individual. And yeah, because it's like we're at a time where we're coming out of the pandemic.
So many crises.
Yeah. And like the loneliness epidemic.
Yeah.
And then people want to be a part of a group, and then they feel a part of a group, but then they're like so far from who they really are and their
But these
values.
group alliances, and I won't get into politics, whatever, but they make no sense, right? On face value, like, why are you?
But it's like a mechanism. Yeah. I mean, we can have an offline conversation.
Well, it is. This is really important. Core value decisions have consequences.
Yeah.
And you don't get any credit when the river and your boat are going in the same direction.
Right.
You get credit when you turn your boat up the river. Like, it's easy when they're going in the same direction. And I'm writing a piece for Harvard Business Review on this. And one of the examples I use is the 37 Signals Basecamp guys. I don't know if you know who they are, but they're a very well-known software company. Basecamp's a project management tool that people have been using for 10 years.
Okay.
They've eschewed they were first at remote work. Jason Fried and David Heinemeier Hansen, they were first at remote work. They raised no venture money. They have a small team. They do all the opposite of the things. In 2022, as sort of peak, we'll call it political activism at work was taking over, there was politics in their company, and they looked at them personally, and they believe in like fairness and inclusion. And they were like, what's going on now is like I would rather not work here than do this. And they basically were like, look, we are not going to do politics. And this is in the middle of everyone doing politics.
Wow.
No politics at work. This is before Elon Musk owned Twitter, and Twitter was used as like a agent of cancer. Like, the world came after them. They told them, you're going to be on the wrong side of history. You don't get this. 30% of their people left. But then 2 weeks later, their revenue wasn't very different. And then suddenly resumes are pouring in from people who don't
Wow.
want politics at work. 4 years later, these guys still don't have investors. They're making a ton of money. Their business is doing better than it's ever done. Their employee engagement's higher. And
Wow.
people are calling them and being like, guys, we were wrong. Now, there are a lot of businesses that waded into this stuff because they just felt like
Yeah.
they had to.
Yes.
And those businesses are a mess. Their performance is a mess and they tried to appease everyone. And so, but I point that out because they almost lost their business, right? But they believed in it so deeply and personally that they were like, we'd rather go home than continue to do something in the
Wow.
workplace that feels so personally inauthentic to us.
Wow.
That's a core values decision.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, that's super powerful. Wow. Yeah. And I feel like we're kind of, it's still happening, but I do feel like we've kind of come up for air a little bit where we're able to kind of like see the fog has like lifted a
Yeah.
little and we're able to kind of see and feel that
Right.
and the effects of it. And I hope we're kind of walking back to ourselves and this will be incredibly helpful in defining our values to stand by them. But this has been amazing. Thank you so much for being here
Thanks
in
for having me.
person. And the book is incredible. And I love the different format. I'm someone who has like, the stack of self-help books,
Yeah.
lots of nonfiction.
It's a story. It's so, yeah.
And it's really a beautiful, nice read. I finished it really quickly. And yeah, this is something that I just ordered for my husband. And it's a great conversation too to bring into your home.
Yeah.
I think.
I'll send you both the course. The course is
I would love that.
connected to the book. If anyone orders the book before it
Great.
launches or during launch week, they can have the course, and it's just kind of
Awesome.
will coach you alongside of it.
Great. Thank you guys for listening. All the information to get the book is in the show notes. Get it right now. It is out right now when this episode comes out. Thank you, Robert.
Thank
You're
you.
the best. Okay, see you later. Bye. Thank you so much, Robert Glazer, for joining us. The new book is called The Compass Within. I am so excited for you all to get it. You can go to robertglazer.com and also robertglazer.com/6 to get those 6 questions to start defining your values.
All right. We will see you on the next one. Thank you for subscribing, rating, and reviewing. Send this to a friend. Talk about your values together. Maybe you guys can have a values night where you're going through some of these exercises. It's a beautiful conversation starter. So enjoy. We will see you soon.
Love you. Bye.
Love you.